10, with me 11. What's our quorum? Okay, then I'm pretty sure we're good. This is pretty skinny. Hi, how are you? Welcome back.
It's good to be back.
Okay, has everybody got their microphones on? And
Yes.
kind of tilted toward voices? They seem a little far away today.
Green or blue?
Okay. I want to welcome everybody. How is everybody? Good?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Good. Great to see you. Wow, gosh. Last month I missed all the regulars. Jeez. So it's nice to have you back. I'd like to have anybody in the audience that might want to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Julie Ott with League of Women Voters.
Great. Thanks for being here. Okay, and it looks like a lot of familiar faces, except, just so she gets more familiar with us, I'd really love for Bethany to introduce herself and tell you a little bit about her.
So I'm Bethany. I started here a couple weeks ago. Graduated
Dinner.
Bethany, would you mind standing up and, just because I'm old, just yell?
You don't give her a microphone?
Yeah, there you go.
We're going to whisper too.
So I'm Bethany. I graduated from UCCS in May with a degree in political science. Like I said, I started here a couple weeks ago. I'm really interested in local government, so I'm excited to be here. Thanks.
Great. Thanks.
We're glad to have her. Thank you for roll.
She is taking our minutes and holding down the fort.
She's on the admin team, so you only see her for a short period of time. I get to see her the rest of the time. So she helps with a lot of committees, a lot of admin support, supporting policy communication, which I'm the acting director of right now.
Bethany, if you ever need us to speak up or get another name, just let us know, okay? Okay, so the meeting is officially called to order, and I want to go ahead and see you if we can have a motion to pass the consent items.
So moved.
And a second, please.
Second.
Okay, do you have names, Bethany? Okay, great. All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Great. I did have one. Bethany, if in the minutes you can just put Jen, Jen, or Jenny, Jenny, either one is fine. Okay, great. All righty. Public comments. Does anybody in? Hi, Brian.
Oh.
You were the source of a couple of questions, and I did get a comment back. So if you have new information, that's awesome.
Hope to answer some of those questions, yes.
Great.
Thank you. Brian Vituli, City of Colorado Springs, Mountain Metropolitan Transit. I saw in the minutes from last month's meeting, there was a request for an update on our downtown transit station relocation study. I wanted to say that we're proceeding. We're looking for finalization of this by late next month. We plan to have, within the coming weeks, I think the second week of October, we plan to have our last technical advisory group meeting and our last stakeholder advisory group meeting. And then the week after that, we'll most likely have our second and final public open house. But, we started the study with identifying about 30 sites overall. Through the first screening of those sites, we ended up with about 12 sites. And we're looking at going into the level 3 screening, which is a comparative analysis of those 3 sites, seeing how they work with several different criteria, seeing how they work, how they fit into the community, how they fit in with the traffic circulation patterns, how they address our needs for expansion and safety and aesthetics. And then so those final 3 sites will have also some preliminary visualizations of what they could look like, some preliminary costs, and then we'll have, we could end up with 3 sites to choose from to see which one works the best. I'm proud to say, well, happy to say that one of those sites will be a public option. will most likely be the Pueblo Avenue, the 2 blocks of Pueblo Avenue, the diagonal street that goes to the southwestern corner of the Pioneers Museum. So the public, the right-of-way of the avenue would be a public option. So there could be, very little need for the purchase of private property. So, and that's been the sticking point in the 6 previous studies. So we'll see how this works out within the coming weeks, but we're still looking forward to this coming to an end. Not that we want it to come to an end, but it will mean that it's the first step in the future of a new downtown transit station. So, and I have a handout here. This kind of This gives the highlights of what I just gave about the downtown transit station. There's a website, a project website, that you can go to get the latest updates on that. So feel free to visit that. Also, on Sunday, September 18th, we implemented our fall service changes, which were a combination of a few routing adjustments and some scheduling adjustments to make all of our connections work better. So things have been going pretty smoothly. We had very, very little feedback, good or bad, which is good.
Usually.
Yeah. So we're looking forward to that. And one highlight of this is the Manitou Incline Cog Shuttle that goes up Ruxton Avenue. That's now an all-year service, so it doesn't cease at the end of summer. And also, I'm very, very happy to announce that last week at the Fall Colorado Association of Transit Agencies Conference, we received the Large Community Transit Agency of the Year Award. So there's a large category and a small category, and we are in transit agencies above population area of 15,000. So we're going up against RTD and Fort Collins and Greeley and Grand Junction and Pueblo. So this is a very good honor. We've done a lot of work this whole year with adding service, improving frequency, improving on-time performance, and so we're really happy for this recognition. So.
Good job.
Congratulations.
Where's the hardware?
It's
On the way?
it's about this big, and we have it, but we're still waiting for the plaque. We'll bring it maybe to the board meeting, but it's a very nice 3D image, printing image that they did on a 3D printer of the state of Colorado with the topography, and so it's a unique award, unique trophy. So.
Well, congratulations. Does anybody have any questions for Brian? Okay, we look forward to, and if you can let us know dates, that'd be awesome. Oh, forgive me, go ahead. Howard.
Not to be gratuitous, but would it be appropriate for this committee to also acknowledge what a great job that, winning that award, as well as looking at some of the performance criteria that was able to be accomplished last year? Is there value in actually recognizing them through a motion?
I think we can do that. So moved, second, so it's a resolution.
Second resolution to recognize a great job.
Mountain Metro Transit.
Correct.
Mr. Vituli, there you go. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you very much.
Way to go, Brian.
Okay, anything else?
Okay.
Okay, the August Board of Directors report. Okay, I took notes and on everything, and luckily Rob's here, so if you have further questions on some of this, he can just pop right up there. In the line that I had the agenda, the strategic plan, they haven't had one updated for a while. I think it's been since 2008-ish.
That was the last time they talked about it.
That's the last time I talked about it. Okay, well, apparently they're going to start working on one. PPACG, the Public Participation Plan, of which we know of, that Rachel presented to us. She shared her plan and mentioned that CAC's input was involved in her plan, so that was good to hear. On the STAC, the candidate and alternate selection, they tabled that decision until January. There's multiple interested candidates as the role has really been expanded. It's far more participatory and decision-making body with the changes that were made in the legislature. And it's more of a direct route to CDOT and the legislature with their opinions. But all of their meetings are open to the public, so anybody's welcome to attend. The PPACG salary system, there was a lot of education for the board in a workshop prior, and they were explaining some of the changes. Bottom line is they're opening wider ranges to be more competitive with market rates, and they are working to get employees at least to the midpoint. And they are going to move towards pay for performance, which most businesses are these days, and not the cost of living type raises. So that's forward thinking. CDOT, good progress on the bridges, and you can see all these marvelous CDOT updates on their website, and look for the southeast, because that would be us, and look at the schedules and all the updates, warnings, what's happening, that kind of thing. So there was a lot of discussion about the I-25 expansion. Everything we heard, and Craig, you can weigh in on this too, it is going to be a managed, but or at least I reiterated our word with them to please expand, look at all the options that you all suggested. There were some discussions regarding 24, and they were wrapping up the work on Peterson and Powers the end of October. Cimarron, there's going to be 2 major changes the 3rd week of October. Okay, this is when you want to be off I-25 for a while now. CDOT said that they were going to be shifting traffic to the new bridge, and for that weekend, I-25 will be down to 2 lanes, and they'll be rerouting 24 so they can demo the old bridge. But they are really accelerating this project, so it's has some upside. But if they stay, I would check and let your constituents know that it's on the website, and you'll be able to track exactly what's happening. There was an interesting discussion about the funding for air quality and what the impact could be with us as a result of the Volkswagen settlement, which I thought was fascinating. But it's based on the Volkswagen vehicle registrations in the state or in the county? Both. Okay. And what is the upside for us? I really didn't.
For us, for Colorado, the upside, about $61 million are coming to the state. Unclear how that's going to be allocated. There was a table that showed by county, VWs registered by county, take a percentage, apply it to the, I think it was 61 million.
Yep.
Correct, 61 million?
That's what I had down to.
So, so people get a few million by county, but as the gentleman from the Air Quality Control Commission said, that's not how it's going to go out. So they're going to bring back to us the process, send it to the board, we can relay it out to you all as well. They just don't know how it's going to be allocated. So statewide amount, you could break it up by county, which someone did, and some folks, like our counterpart agency up Fort Collins, they've already asked to try to get the money into
Keep going on it.
those areas that are in violation of air quality, and you all probably remember we're not in violation of air quality, carbon monoxide or ozone. So we have clean air, but we do have registered vehicles that may be polluting. So we'll be part of that process, we hope, to see can we get some of that money. So stay tuned is probably the best thing we can say for now.
And, hey, that's a positive outcome on a pretty negative business decision. Go ahead.
Jen, is there any restrictions on the money? I understand it's all part of the settlement, but is it to be used for improving air quality? Do you have to fix cars with it? Or
They have some criteria, but again, they haven't published it
They
yet.
haven't released it yet.
Yeah. They're trying to still figure out how to best do it. Because the owners of the vehicles get something else. You can replace your car or get money to do something, but this is for the damage to the surrounding area, I guess, not the car. So they're still working on the criteria, Scott.
Hal, you have a question?
Was there an explanation as to why the formula gives X amount of money, but it's not going to be distributed that way? What's the justification?
Yeah, there was a national formula, so of the couple $2 billion nationally, it was by vehicle registration to the state. And so the state hasn't subdivided it. Another one of our council of governments did a by county registration. And so the state's not saying they're doing it by registration, by county. So they're still working on how do you go from the statewide number, how do you go from 61 million to something? Could all 61 million go to one program? Maybe. But again, they haven't quite figured out the nexus of the vehicles and the money. So the vehicles, we know where they are, but they haven't decided that's where the money goes.
Very interesting. The military installation reports, Peterson Air Force Base is still working through, I think it compares that might all be bazillions, but millions of dollars worth of hail damage. General Hyten is moving to Stratcom, and General Raymond is returning. The 29th of October is retiree event, and I know we have some retirees in here, myself included. So there you go. Your day at Peterson, they'll have all the services, everything that you want to find out about, what things are available out at Pete that day. We have over 3,000 retirees here, and we are second only to San Antonio as far as the amount of retirees in a community. So
3,000?
3,000?
over 3,000.
Well, I'm sure it's over 3,000.
Yeah, well,
No, that's not veterans, that's 20-year retirees or more. There's a lot more veterans.
retirees. Yeah, retirees. So that's.
3,000 retirees, but there's,
I just take the notes. And that's not necessarily, that may not be family members, that may be the actual person that is the retiree, so.
Does that count medical retirees too?
I have no idea, I just, when
Not
it,
me, but we have a lot of those.
I know, but by the time we get to the military installation reports, I'm just taking notes. Schriever, the IG's looking at all the programs on base, and they had a bunch of events in September. The Air Force Academy, just an FYI, 1168 cadets arrived, and 1107 stuck around after basic training. So, and by the way, the Navy game is this weekend.
go Navy.
What? Yes!
Yes. Yes.
Go Navy!
Yes.
This is,
There's the Navy corner.
yeah.
Yes.
And
Make sure that's in the minutes, thank you.
the
Well, Clark.
76 grads are back for their 40th reunion, so that's pretty awesome.
Now we know where to put the fault line.
In Fort Carson, 2 large hangars are under construction. The runway's completed, the redo on the runway. 2 commanding colonels are sharing responsibility for the base. They're kind of doing the 6-month rotation thing. And there was a transition summit. It's kind of ongoing. Bush flew in for this as well, for the troops that are moving to civilian life and the difficulty with jobs and making the transition. So there's been a lot of work being done on that. And what you should all know is the executive director evaluation is in progress. So you should have been mailed an email that you can respond. Give your thoughts.
Is that why he's here today?
So that goes to the board. Okay, that's my report. Any questions on that? Sure, Vince.
On the managed lane program, I don't think, the mayor's talking about, Mayor of Colorado Springs is talking about, he's going to be talking to the politicians, and they're going to try to get that thing accelerated. But I don't think anybody understands that it is going to be a managed lane solution. Is that something that should be kind of released to the public, to let them know that this is what's coming down the stream? Or keep it secret, or who would do that?
CDOT's going to run the project. So.
But
And I'm sure they're going to have a website and outreach and all sorts of.
that's nothing, does the mayor even know that it's going to be managed lanes?
Well, I think that's one of the alternatives that they're looking at now because of the funding source. High Performance Transportation Enterprise, HPTE, a wing of CDOT, they're funding it they fund managed lanes. And so they want their money to look at that. But when they get into the environmental clearance document, they've probably got to look at everything. Our board, as Jen said, our board said, hey, CDOT, we would like you to look at all options. So I think they have the message, and so the PEL scope is going to do what it's doing, but again, that's just the first phase. Environmental clearance, and if you don't know the acronyms, there's plenty. Environmental assessment, environmental impact statement. So don't know which way they're going, but they have to do the PEL, planning environmental linkages study first, and then go into the environmental clearance document. So part of the PEL may serve for the alternatives analysis, but we've heard from CDOT they probably have to look at the other options. But right now, according to CDOT's letter, it says they're looking at just managed lanes.
Right.
And that was included in the board packet. And I don't know if the CAC members got that. But
We talked about it, and in fact expressed our feelings that we want them to look at all the options, not just the managed. Although, when I was talking to the folks from CDOT at the meeting, it almost looks like a slam dunk for it to be the whole managed thing, so that's why I said something when I gave our committee's report, so we'll see. Anything else? We're good? Okay, the 2017-2022 TIP amendment. Kevin?
Good afternoon, everyone. Kevin Reyes, Transportation Planner here with PPACG. Today I'm going to be going over TIP Amendment number 3 for the 2017-2022 TIP. Amendment number 3 comes in 3 different parts, and all of them are coming to us from CDOT. So Part A in your memo says that Region 2 was recently awarded HSIP funding for a safety project on State Highway 83 and County Road 404. And so with this money, they're planning to build a roundabout and fix the roadway for sight distance. So this is more of a safety project they're going to be using this money for. And so they're going to be receiving $150,000 for design in fiscal year 2017 and $1.6 million for construction in fiscal year 2018 for this project. So that's the first part. Part B from CDOT as well. They are planning on moving the Woodman Park and Ride. They are going to be putting some money towards that. The reason they're doing that is because they say that the parking lot there is at capacity right now, and they're actually planning on adding additional service of bus staying to this park and ride location. So with that additional service, it's only going to increase congestion. So what they're going to be doing is they're going to be using $3 million of SB 228 funds to open up a right-of-way phase to start looking for a new park and ride location for this park and ride. And then Part C in the memo, so CDOT Region 1 is returning $500,000 of RPP funds to Region 2. They don't need this money anymore from a PEL study that they were going to do. So our region is going to be using this money for 2 different projects. Both of them are going to be along the US 24 corridor. The first projects they're going to be doing is at 31st Street and 21st Street and the US 24. They're doing both these projects as one package. At 31st Street, they're going to be doing some minor widening on the eastbound auxiliary lane. And at 21st Street, they're going to be adding a left turn storage capacity. And so they're going to be putting $400,000 of funds to these 2 projects. And then the other $100,000 of these RPP funds are going to be going towards the Rainbow Falls Bridge. They're going to be doing some aesthetic treatment to that bridge as well. So yeah, that's everything we have for the TIP Amendment number 3 for this month. Are there any questions on that?
Go ahead, Jim. I'm just going to go around the room. So.
Okay. Help me a little bit. The Woodman Park and Ride is the one that's there at I-25 and Woodman Road?
Yeah, that's
okay. When we talk about the Park and Ride right now, is it simply those small footprints that are immediately adjacent to Corporate Center Drive as opposed to the larger area that was scoped out and produced, and to the best of my knowledge, has never been used, that's on the other side of the river, the river. Wow, I've been gone for a while. Between Monument Creek and the railroad?
Are you asking where they're going to be putting the new one?
No. There is due west.
You're asking where the current one is right now?
Okay,
Back out just a little bit.
yeah, come out just a
To
little
the
bit.
left.
Coming into
All right, the park and ride is that little,
This is the parking lot.
that's the park and ride. No, across.
it's this
That's
one.
the park and
This is
ride.
the
That
I got
other,
the interstate, so this is the
look
parking
it to
lot.
the left, look it to
Yes.
the west.
Yes.
That has never been used for anything except teaching kids how to drive, as
And,
far as I can tell.
And the CDOT tried to have discussions, this has been going on for almost.
Is that private?
Yeah, it's private, and the owner has no interest in any use. See, in its place, CDOT is looking, where's the furniture mart?
Right there.
Looking at the location right here.
Amazing. Okay.
Yeah, it's my understanding that
Yeah,
this
Kevin
is-
has.
This is Kevin. It's my understanding that parking lot was built to accommodate the college expansion at Tiffany Square.
This one?
Yes.
Yeah, and obviously they didn't need it because there hasn't been a car parked there for 2
Actually,
years.
most of them park here.
Right.
Yeah, and so that was an odd land use requirement, but it seems to me like something ought to be able to be worked out there.
I live right there also, and it's empty, always.
Yeah, always.
It's actually roped off. You can't get in there.
Is it? I didn't know.
Yeah, it's cordoned off.
We had some other questions. Al?
Yes, you're mentioning here the HSIP, it's not in the,
Abbreviations
And
table.
acronyms.
Oh, I'm sorry. Highway.
Safety
what can you-
improvement.
That's right. Yeah, Highway Safety Improvement Program. Yeah. Sorry about that.
can you also, talked about the regional priority program, and what does it look like? I know I should know, but.
The RPP funds that we're receiving. You want to understand why we're getting those, or what?
What's it look like now? And if there's changes to something that I'm not so sure I've seen, but that's right.
This is additional.
So you want to know how much money we have in that category right now?
Sure.
Yeah, statewide, it's a funding category that used to be a lot larger. It used to be 120, 150 million statewide. It's dropped down to 50 million statewide as one program, one line item that CDOT has. So it's about $10 million per CDOT region. So our Region 2 gets $10 million to try to plug in either a whole project or part of a project. Our wonderful Cimarron Interchange has a piece of that money, but obviously it's got a lot more.
It's like those small project kinds of things that you.
Yeah, it's.
Or parts of projects.
Yeah,
Parts
you
of
hear us
projects.
talk about our most flexible is STP Metro, or now it's a block grant. So that STP Metro funding is most flexible. CDOT's version is RPP. They can use it for anything, safety, capacity, you name it. So the RTDs, the transit managers, ours is Karen Rowe, look strategically where to put that money in.
Okay, good.
So this is an opportunity to put it in somewhere that usually has matching money with it.
Got it. Makes a difference.
Hang on, Vince, I'll come back to you right after Fran.
Mine was answered, the Woodman parking.
Great. Go ahead, Vince.
On 83 and County Line Road, they're putting a roundabout right
At the
there on
intersection.
83.
Yeah.
This is my question too.
I can probably try to bring it up on the map here if you want to.
Oh, no, the speeds on that road, I think it's at least 55, if not 65, and they're going to throw a roundabout in the middle of that.
A high-speed roundabout.
It's banked.
I'm a little confused about
It
this
works
whole.
perfectly fine in Korea.
Well, if they bank it right.
I've seen it work perfectly fine in Korea.
Daytona.
Is it,
Who decided
Yeah, that's
that
what
was
I was
an intelligent design for that intersection?
I wonder if it's meant to slow down the traffic prior to that light. That's
What
the,
light?
there's a light, not,
It's on Hodgen,
I just zoom out.
There's a light at Hodgen, but it's like 4 miles from
and not even 105 has a light.
Not even
on it.
close.
This is 105.
here. Yeah.
No, that's, I thought that was,
This is
that's,
83 and 105.
no, this,
County line.
County Line Road.
Oh, sorry, yeah, you're right.
105 right
It's,
there.
yeah, county line. There's no light anywhere nearby.
No,
Because there's no light at 105, there's no light at Baptist.
it would have to be lit
Oh,
up, kind
there's
of
the
like a
light at
football
Baptist.
field.
That's right. Yeah, so I mean,
Zoom in there.
it
Which is
makes
Baptist.
no sense. Yeah, Hodgin Baptist. I mean,
There.
yeah, no, it's up
That high
further.
urbanized-
It's
that
one
urbanized
more north.
intersection.
Yep,
Right there.
yeah, there we go.
That's it.
Oh, yeah, definitely needed.
That is inane.
Is it a stop? Is it a stop, not four-way stop? Or is
No,
it
it's not
just
a
a
four-way
two-way
stop.
stop?
It's a two-way stop on County Line Road.
Wow.
No, I mean,
put a
there's
roundabout.
nothing there. That's what I'm, why are they?
Sure, there's rationale.
There is actually, it's a safety issue, and the alternatives they were looking at are a four-way stop or a signalized intersection, and the roundabout was the most capacity and actually a safer design than the four-way stop or the signal. So
How many accidents have they had there?
Yeah, I mean, how bad
I don't know.
is-
Although,
It's never on the.
in a week, I'll be able to tell you, we just got our new safety software, so, but it is a safety issue at that location. This is another one that's been a point of discussion for about a year, so.
Okay.
Any other questions for Kevin on this? Not going to take 83 much more. Okay, may I have a motion, please?
So moved by Hal.
Second by Welling Clark.
Okay. Any further questions, discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our next item, Ken, designation of the urban freight corridors, critical urban freight corridors.
Good afternoon, Ken Prather, PPACG, Transportation Planner. For the last couple of months, you've been talking about critical urban freight corridors. Today, we're time to actually make a decision. Last month, you asked for some additional, and the month before, actually, you asked for some additional information about the freight corridors that we've been discussing, and so in attachment one, you'll see I've added some volume and truck accident information, maybe to put that in a little bit of perspective. At I-25 and Uinta, we've got 125,000 vehicles a day, of which 6.9% are trucks. So some of these corridors we're talking about approach that or exceed it. One of them there looks a little bit low, but freight-related projects that are currently programmed in 2016 or 2017 are eligible for the new freight funds that have been created and that are coming to this Colorado. There's about $15 million a year. In 2018 and later, for a project to be eligible, it must be in the statewide freight plan. Because of this, CDOT is beginning the revision of its state freight plan and will have it completed at the end of 2017. During that process, they will also develop the methodology for selecting projects, and this, I'm sure, will be a CDOT statewide effort, competitive process.
Ken, I
Yes.
believe, Kevin, you have a question on the data?
Yeah, I have a question as to why we're recommending the money go to the road with the least amount of traffic.
I'll tell you what, let's let Ken finish, and maybe perhaps he'll be able to fill us in on that,
Thought he was finished.
because I did see it was a TAC.
So what CDOT is proposing and TAC is that we identify corridors for right now that would be eligible to receive the funds in 2016 or 2017. We won't bother about designating any other corridors until after CDOT develops, revises the statewide freight plan and develops a methodology for selecting projects. Now, what I forgot to put in the memo is that these corridors can be designated, undesignated, redesignated at any time. So if the Charter Oak Ranch Road, which is the one project in our area that is programmed in 2017, therefore it's eligible right now for these funds. We'll have to see whether it makes it into the state plan for 2018 or later. Otherwise, it won't be eligible. For any projects won't be eligible, and there would be no need to declare it a freight corridor if we don't have any projects on it. It is the state strategy to designate roads so that they are eligible to receive funds for projects. And then once those projects are finished, we will redesignate and pick something else, because we do have a cap on the amount of roads that can be designated critical urban freight corridors. Statewide, there can only be 80.35 miles. So once a project is finished and we need funding for another project somewhere else, we'll redesignate it. Now, it's a strategy for using the funds on a project need. It is not a theoretical, philosophical, this is our priority freight corridor in the region and it will never change for the next 100 years. It's not that kind of approach. It is a strategy to be able to be eligible to use funds that are now available, that have not existed in the past. So that's the reason that the recommendation today is that we only designate Charter Oak Ranch Road, and we'll see what happens to these other corridors next year.
And I think people have a lot of valid questions because the logic seems a little bit flawed as far as the... Kevin, did you have anything you wanted to ask?
No, I asked my question. I think it was answered.
Okay. Scott?
There's also $600,000 of the tiger funds that are going into that. That allows the opening of a non-qualified gate in Fort Carson. It ties into the expansion of the Fort Carson airfield, field, and in the new housing that's going into Fort Carson. That road right now isn't even rated to have a Hummer drive on it, and it's expected to handle quite a bit of traffic for Fort Carson and for the military. It's also in the middle of an industrial complex, feeds into I-25 and into the south end of the city of Fountain, from Santa Fe ties into I-25.
Yeah,
The roadway, the highway overpass, and the roadway in through Fountain has all been improved. That piece is the only part that has not been improved. We have Transmix concrete up there, not Transmix, Page Stone's up there, Transwest is up there, and if we can get Gate 19 and Charter Oak Road, it will be a major corridor. It will actually alleviate some of the pressure off of Gate 20.
So this is the section of road that we're talking about. This is southern end of Fountain. This comes across here. Charter Oak Ranch Road starts here and wraps around and then goes west, a little less than a mile over to Gate 19.
Once you get past the Transwest, there's not much there other than potholes to die. There's also a relatively major irrigation tunnel that's basically collapsing there that has to be redone. There's already $600,000 in tiger funds going into it, and this would simply supplement that to allow that gate to be reopened and used by Fort Carson, which serves the Crossfield.
And can we see what's to the left of the, that goes on down? Is that a gate? Does it go to?
Gate 19 is right here, and Charter Oak Ranch Road turns south here and continues on, and there is a quarry operation down here that has trucks on it as well.
The road on Fort Carson is unimproved.
That would be a good way to
That's a
put
way to
it.
do it.
Having driven it.
It is a dirt road, yeah.
Trail, almost.
Ken, I have a question. When we put this in to the state and we say this is our project, and I think maybe with that information and maybe the people here, we see that it has tremendous potential perhaps down the road. But are you submitting that project with this data that shows other projects, at least from the data that you're submitting, look a lot stronger, like from a safety and volume standpoint?
No. All we're doing, and all, the board has the authority by law to designate the critical corridors, the critical urban corridors in our urbanized area. So it will go to the board, and we will ask the board to approve Charter Oak Ranch Road as a .6 mile critical urban corridor in the Pikes Peak urbanized area. That certification, that designation will go to FHWA. In that certification letter will also be a statement that we coordinated with CDOT, because we're required by law to do that, and that we are staying within the statewide cap of 80.35 miles. Because CDOT will be making designations independently of us, Dr. Cog are. We're all supposed to coordinate, but the board makes it certification. All we will be doing by that designation is making this road eligible to use these $15 million funds in 2016 or 17. Only eligible. CDOT has not announced how they're going to call for projects, what projects they're going to fund, but at least we will now be in the pot. Now, whether we get selected or not is an entirely separate question.
Do we, and forgive me for asking this question, when we submit that project, do we put the relevance to the community or the economic impact or any of those kinds of things in our rationale for suggesting this particular project?
Yes. At that point, of course, we'll have to be using CDOT's process. So CDOT will identify their criteria. How is it going to evaluate projects? How are we going to compare against Castle Rock, Grand Junction, Lamar?
Yep. But what we do initially is we submit why we believe this.
We will submit, when they identify in their process for calling for projects and want to know in their application form, then we will fill it out and give them all of the statistics and information that they're using to select a project. We don't know what that is at this time. They have made no mention or discussion of it.
Mystery criteria. Okay. Yep, Hal?
If in fact that road is designated and it gets funded and it gets improved, and Fort Carson is fully on board that they would move more trucks through that gate?
It actually opens up more than just trucks, it also opens up residential development for companies.
Good.
Well, my understanding
Fort
is...
Carson is on board, in other words, they've expressed interest.
Then you want that gate open and active.
Fort Carson is trying to get Department of Defense construction funds for this road. The next available construction funds won't be available until 2023, 22? 23.
That's what I was going to let you know, Harold. When I was still working for Fort Carson, and I would go to some of the command briefings, that's one of the gates they've been keying on and want, but they need that section improved because it wouldn't make any difference for them to straighten that out and open it if it bottlenecks right there. So that's been on the agenda since back when I retired in 2014.
Excellent. Thank you.
It's good to know.
Now, Fort Carson's current policy is that all commercial trucks enter off of Academy Boulevard on the north side for security reasons, and that's where they go through their security inspection and everything else. No trucks enter anywhere else. So, but that's a Fort Carson policy and decision, so they could revise that and set up security procedures down here, but I have no idea what they would do about that.
What does AADT stand for?
Average annual daily traffic, I'm sorry.
Volume.
Should have spelled that out.
I'm sorry. Air Force, Navy, then Green Tech.
Okay.
Now, there's a little bit, if I may, there's a little bit of, if you notice the recommendation is that you're recommending or I'm asking you to recommend that the board approve or designate part of this road as an urban critical freight corridor and recommend to CDOT that it designate the remaining portion as rural. Only this portion of the road is in our urban area. That's the only portion that PPACG board has authority to designate. So there's about 0.6, 0.7, depending on how you measure it exactly, miles, and that's what the board could designate. This portion, which is in the rural area, CDOT designates critical rural freight corridors. And so we're asking that the board recommend to CDOT that it designate this portion as a rural.
Critical urban.
Rural critical, will designate this portion as urban, and therefore the entire length would be eligible for the funding.
Jim?
Just to clarify in simple terms for me, this sounds like we're trying to get our nose intent on a program we have no idea how it's actually going to work out. Because the rules have not been laid out. But if we can get a small project in, get it approved, that might give us some leverage going forward with some more significant ones.
It'll get us into the tent for this project, it'll get this project into the tent, and then we'll find out what the rules are and how the game's going to be played, and maybe it'll get money.
We'll
It
be
won't get money if it's
interested to
not
hear
in the
how
tent.
it goes, because it sounds like a political football. But-
Jim Moore and I move, can I move now? Can I make a
Please.
motion? I move that we recommend this to the Pikes Peak Area Board.
Second.
Okay, give Michelle the second this time. Okay, any further questions? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thanks, Ken.
Thank you very much.
Okay, you are not Michael Snow.
No. I am not. Yeah, we haven't heard anything from him, so I
Okay,
assume he's not
that's all
coming.
right. This is CDOT's Together We Go program, and I was looking for Michael Snow, but Craig, you were on, man.
Yep, no, Michael's not here, so I guess we'll try to catch that presentation next time.
Oh, so it's, you don't
Yeah,
have
we
a
don't-
briefing?
I don't even have his presentation. I've heard nothing.
Okay.
You want to go before you, or?
Hmm?
You want to go before me? On the agenda?
You're item 9, this is item 9.
Oh, Kevin's next.
Oh,
Do 8.
I was jumping over.
You can go.
Sorry, no.
Just jump in line.
Does the committee mind if the agenda is changed? Does the committee mind if the order of the agenda is changed?
Yeah.
Okay, Craig?
That helps because the tip comes out again on them.
He's allowed.
Somebody.
Are 7 and 9
No,
related to
8.
each other?
Seven.
7 is tabled until we have the correct speaker.
7 is tabled.
And 8,
Didn't stand up quick enough.
it's fine.
Greg's going to look for Michael.
I am,
Kevin Reyes again here with PPACG. I'm going to get up my file real fast here. Okay. Okay, so last month I announced that PPACG is kicking off the 2019 to 2024 Transportation Improvement Program. And as part of that process, I brought to you all a discussion item regarding some potential TIP policies. And so we had a discussion on those last month. And we had a lot of good feedback on those from both the TAC and the CAC. So I actually wanted to bring those back again this month for further discussion. So if you look at your memo, I actually have the same exact policies that we discussed last month to just get a little bit more feedback this month and to see if we have any additional ideas as well. Also, at the TAC meeting last month, we got a request from one of the members to include a list of the current and past TIP policies that have been approved by the board. So I included those in your packet as well. Those are in attachment number 2, if you're curious at looking at those. But for the purposes of today, I want to focus mostly on the policies that we discussed last month, starting with TIP policy number 1, which states that projects submitted to the 2019-2024 TIP must come from the list of financially constrained projects in the 2040 Long-Range Transportation Plan. Now, if you look in your memo, we have the same pros listed here as we did last month, but we did add one additional pro that we briefly touched on last month, and it's pro number 1, which says this policy would ensure that PPACG is conforming to the congressionally mandated performance-based measures required in the FAST Act. So again, we briefly touched on this last month. I want to go into this one a little bit more in depth this month to kind of fully explain it. So when Congress passed the FAST Act last December, they created a new rule that said that in our long-range transportation plans, we have to include performance measures, which basically means we have to show measurement. We have to have measurements in there and use those to measure how we're making progress towards our goals. So if you look at attachment number 1, I'll go in that to a little more detail on that. So I kind of outlined FHWA's kind of logic with this new rule. So in attachment number 1, the bold words are kind of my own interpretation of the rules, and then the direct quotes are right under that as well. So starting with number 1, it states basically that MPOs such as PPACG are tasked with developing long-range transportation plans which cover a period of at least 20 years and cover both short-term and long-term strategies. That is why PPACG exists. The second point says that FHWA states that the TIP will be consistent with the long-range transportation plan. Now, FHWA has always used the word consistent, but this time with the FAST Act, they're putting a little bit more structure around that word with these new performance measures, which gets me to point number 3, which says that long-range transportation plans must be performance-driven and outcome-based. And point number 4 says the TIP must make progress towards achieving the performance targets in that long-range plan, which again provides more structure to that word consistent. So for example, we have performance measures in the long-range transportation plan, and if a project sponsor submits a project that doesn't make progress towards those performance measures, then by definition that would be inconsistent with the long-range transportation plan. Number 5 says the performance-based approach from FHWA ensures that the TIP implements the national goals and the long-range transportation plan. So that's kind of the basic logic of this new rule from FHWA. And in conclusion, the idea of it is to hold PPACG more accountable to making sure that the TIP actually implements the long-range transportation plan, which is kind of the point, because the money that we receive from the federal government is designed for planning. It's not really designed for emergencies, and it's not really designed for a change in priorities. And so if you actually look in your memo, we for the cons for policy number 1, we changed the language slightly. We said one of the cons of this policy would be there's a perceived lack of flexibility for emergencies and a perceived limited flexibility to respond to changing needs, because it is in fact perceived. For example, if a road in the Pikes Peak region was washed out tomorrow, you would want to start fixing that road right away. You wouldn't want to try to get it started the next day or the next week. You wouldn't want to wait a long time to start fixing that road. So if that road was washed out and you tried to use money from the TIP to pay for that, you would have to wait 2 years until the next call for projects to even get it in the TIP. And once it's in the TIP, it wouldn't get funding until at least 2020. So you'd be waiting at least 4 years to get that project even started to get fixed. There's a lot of other funding sources for things like that, such as FEMA, that pay for projects like that. So again, the money that we're receiving is designed for long-range planning, which is why we spend a lot of time to develop a long-range transportation plan. So that's kind of the logic with TIP policy number 1. I won't go into TIP policy number 2 yet. I wanted to outline kind of the logic with policy number 1, and again, get your guys' feedback on that this month as well. So with that, I'll open it up to the floor here.
Al?
Does the way that the language has changed, or the way that it's kind of being adopted, does it increase or change at all the amount of leverage that the federal government has over the states? Or is it, is everything kind of the same, or has the federal government tried to use rule setting and regulation to expand their direction? I look at number 5, to ensure that the TIP will implement national goals. Mm-hmm. How much of a change is that versus where we are?
In terms of implementing national goals, it's not too big. The federal government is coming out with some federal performance measures, but they're very broad. And so in terms of the federal government really creating strict rules with regards to them having an influence on our decisions here, I don't think that would happen. They're more concerned about just having performance measures so you can measure your progress.
Because, I mean, obviously, I know that the federal government has huge leverage now with money. But as far as directing which projects get priority, what the performance criteria are, has things changed? Are they changing?
Yes. Actually, going to a performance-based system is a tremendous change from before. Including if you don't achieve your performance measures, the federal government tells you what you will spend the money on. If you get past your tip and you don't achieve your pavement maintenance or your safety reductions, then they say, okay, from now on you can only put your money in pavement maintenance or safety reductions. But it's after the tip. So I guess, yeah, so that is a big change. But it's, the soonest that's 6 years out, because you have to forecast what your 6-year investment will achieve, how that compares to the national, state, and regional goals. Because there's a national goal for the different categories. The state has to do at least the national goal, but they can do stricter. And then the MPOs can do at least, they have to do at least the state goal, but they can do stricter. So, and if you don't make it, then you get into this slippery slope of, right. So, does that help?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Does anybody else have a question? Go ahead, Vince.
I do, and it is a little different. I sent an email to Craig and Rob a couple of months ago. And the effectiveness of all of this planning, right now we're looking at
To 20%.
the tip, 6 years out. If we were to look back in 2008, and we would be doing the 11 through 16 tip, those projects that were identified in those tips, how many were done in the years that they had planned to be done? So how effective is the programming and carrying out, executing the program? Because you're spending an awful lot of time, and there's a lot of things a lot of hoops you got to go through to make these things happen. So again, back in 2008, you identified projects in 2016. Those projects were identified in 2008.
Well, in 2008, we did 9 through 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. In 2008, we did 2009 to 2014.
Well, like right now, we're doing,
17 to
Yeah.
22.
well, the numbers that we have in here are like 21, or 19 through 20.
Yeah, that'll be the next 2-year call.
Yeah,
Right.
this coming up. Okay, so
How many were done?
well, how many are actually completed in the years that you program the tip out?
That's
You
what the
keep
tip-
moving it year to year.
That's what the tip delay policy shows you. We do have about half our projects get done in the year that they're programmed, and about half of them get delayed. But that's what every year, that's one of the things we have to do is every year we give.
If you go, like in, 6 years from now in the program, probably 10% or 5% would be done? And I'm sure the near term, you would have a higher percentage. But I'm just looking at the effectiveness of what happens in the planning to what actually is accomplished based on the planning. Or just, do you kind of throw the projects out, things come up, hey, this is a plan, but we're really going to do these things?
Actually, in some places, every time you do a tip update, if you didn't get your project done, you start over and you're not in it. We just add 2 years on, and once you get the money, you get that money unless you...
You get the money, but do you do those projects that you identify?
If you don't do those projects, you have to give the money back. That's actually one of the things we have to do with the city is that explain to them it's not your money, it's money for this project. You're not doing that project, the money comes back. We just did it last year again, took $2 million back, so...
And I think Vince, to your point, you're right. We all spend so many years doing a long-range plan. And we say, all right, there's the next 26 years. And then we say, all right, let's do the next 6 years. And so the tip is at 6 years. So ideally, the projects come to a long-range plan, and that's what this policy is talking about. They go into that 6 years, but as Craig talks about, we report out, and the feds look for us to report out at least annually, if not more frequently, what happened to those projects in that year.
Right.
So as Craig talks about the tip delay policy, the feds could take the money after a couple of years and say, we're not asking, we're going to take the federal money back, put it in redistribution, and they'll send the money elsewhere because the feds, they want the money out the door. They don't want to hang on to it.
They want to
It's
spend.
good for, about, I think 4 years is about as long as you can squeeze it.
Yeah.
But we look at all the projects and whether they get delayed for some reason. That's why we have the policy. You can delay it, defer it a little bit. If you get too far, we talk to the board. And the board says, give the money back. Now, remember, this money is all reimbursement. So if city, a county, a town spends the money on a project and it's not the right project or the scope, the feds through CDOT won't give them the money back. So a town would be out the money until, so I think there's a lot of checks and balances in it. But to your point, Vince, I think we spend so much time, everyone's tracking these projects, but occasionally some will be forgotten. And so the
We've
feds
seen
and
that.
CDOT do a good job with our staff to say, all of a sudden they'll say, hey, you've got some more money in the pot, let's go program projects. One of my directions for Craig and his staff is, let's please check the projects that we're not giving away some of the local government's money on a project that got delayed for 3 years because of some environmental clearance thing, or they had to avoid a mouse or something.
The railroad.
Whatever it is, you've got to do that. So, again, a lot of those great checks and balances, but I think we've caught up now, and we're going to report more frequently, whatever, where are all these projects? Are they in design? They paused? They're done? Whatever that phase is, we're going to start reporting that. Especially when we get to the E-tip someday.
Yeah, and we're at the coming up on the end of the fiscal year, federal fiscal year, so you'll be seeing a report of that in 2 months, I think. I'd have to look at the schedule. So
I guess you'd say maybe 50% of those that are identified in a 6-year program are accomplished in that 6 years.
Oh, no, they get done in that 6 years. They may not get done in the year they're programmed. So if it's a program for 2017, about half of them get done in 2017, and about half of them get done in 2018 or 19
But the rest
maybe.
of them roll forward.
Yeah, that's exactly what we call it, the roll forward, yeah. But they all, if they're listed, they all get done.
Yeah, they don't languish too long.
Yeah.
Okay.
They either get done or withdrawn, so.
Scott?
Yes, some help into, also to Harold's point. So, been on miscellaneous boards dealing with transportation for the last 10 years, between highway advisory and RTA, and one of the consistent themes has been, please put all of your long-range plans on the same table and overlay them, so we can make sure that the MTCP, TIF, and the LRTP all say the same thing, so we can start directing that money towards those. And it sounds like we've gotten what we've asked for with federal oversight. So now we've lost a little bit of our own control by asking for too much control. Is that what I'm understanding? Now, if we don't play right, the feds can come in and say, no, you will play it this way.
I'll take a shot while Craig's coming up. And remember, the feds control their money.
And that's,
They don't control. So remember, our TIP has every major transportation project regardless of funding source. So the PPRTA, which we're very familiar with, it puts $40, $50 million a year into projects. The feds can't say, oh, you need to pave more. County road and bridge, city funding
That's
for
our
other
tax
things. 2C, the city is going to pay. Right. So
Have to go through DC to
Roundabout.
come back.
Right, no, we don't send our local money to DC because that's not a good thing. So for the feds, it's sent about $10 million our way every year. The projects that have federal money, and if you combine them with local money, guess what you inherit? The federal rules. So I think the local governments have really
Medicare.
been very careful about doing that. Sometimes they'll defederalize a project because they can go get it funded locally. Otherwise, they're like, boy, this is too big, we need to add federal money. We know we got to clear federally, we got to go through PEL and NEPA, all those great acronyms for environmental clearance. So the local governments do a good job on that, and CDOT too. But with the federal dollars, there come all those rules. And as we talked earlier, you have to be cautious on those rules because the feds can take back their money, or it's not really take back.
they just don't reimburse you.
They won't reimburse you, and so you have a great trail that now is going to be funded 100% local, and that's a problem for some local governments to say, we did. And we had a project in the region, I'll try not to give them away, but they missed the whole land acquisition federal process. So they could not get reimbursed for that entire project. because they didn't follow the federal rules on land acquisition. And that was a big hit to that local government.
It was a large percentage of their budget.
You have a question there, Will?
Okay. Yeah, Kevin, this is a slightly different venue. When we're talking about creating projects and with performance-based approach coming down, how do we stack up? I mean, in my thinking, we establish a project with certain outcomes and goals we want to achieve. And when we get the project done, do we go back and monitor and see how well we stack up with the outcomes?
That's a new requirement. Among the new requirements of FAST is a yearly Metropolitan System Performance Report, where we have to gather the data, and see how our region is performing against at least the national criteria every year. It's one of those things that the GAO said it's going to cost MPOs about $480,000 a year to do that, so they gave us an extra $50,000 a year to do it with.
Have we done that in the past where we said, okay, here's a project and this is what we want it to do, and go back and then measure it at the end? Kind of a pre-test, post-test?
Nope, we've never, and no, I don't know of any MPOs that have done it.
Okay.
It's,
It's a lot of work.
it is. And
Yeah.
Vince?
Yeah, on the federal funding, federal rules, I recall when they did the Woodman Academy interchange, they had the ARRA money that was applied to it.
American Recovery Reinvestment Act money?
And then they had to use Davis-Bacon wage structures, which raised the rates, the cost of that project. Does the same thing happen when you use federal funds on these projects?
Exactly, every time. The city actually just did it on 30th Street. They're going to add shoulders and put in, I think, a bike lane. And they just added that as a TIP project because the funds they had through the PPRTA weren't sufficient. So they just added Metro dollars to it. And so now they've got to follow Davis-Bacon and all that.
Which cost more.
Right.
It does. And again, it's cost of project, so that big $30+ million Academy Woodman project.
Became a $45 million.
Yeah, I think the total went over $50 million.
Yeah.
But it combined all sorts of money, but I think locally we're one of the only projects in Colorado, if not the nation, that had a project that met that great shovel-ready definition.
Yes.
Because it had to be ready to go out the door.
Oh, yeah.
And so it used some federal money to get ready, so it cleared federally. Then it switched over to be an RTA project, going to be paid for 100% local. But then when the American Recovery money came out, we said,
Hey, it fits.
$32 million federal money, plugged it in because we cleared it. Remember, way back here, we cleared it federally with some of Craig's program money. And so it was literally ready to go, and just, it was changed funding sources, which gave $32 million into the local
RTA.
projects.
So
It just accelerated $32 million elsewhere, because I think most of the local governments, and certainly CDOT, they follow the federal rules clearing most projects, whether it's a trail or interchange, because you never know when the pennies from heaven, or tens of millions fall out of the sky, or with the truck route, 15 million statewide. Anyone want to get in the pool, how much money we get out of that 15 million statewide? I mean, that's statewide, 15 million.
That's not much.
That's a planning study somewhere. Again, you're talking a highway and a truck, any road, 15 million.
That won't even get you a mile.
So that's why, 0.7, it could get us.
Well, it's you know what? It's always worth a try. I went through that with healthcare as well. Healthcare projects had to be shovel ready, so you had to have capital projects that were ready to go. You couldn't just all of a sudden have one you had to address. But I appreciate that. The one thing I had a question on was the same thing I had a question about not so much the flexibility. I guess it's related to flexibility. I'm not talking about emergencies. What I'm talking about, if the community has a business opportunity, or let's say a large company comes into the region, and part of our negotiation is to build some kind of an access or priority project, that kind of stuff, and this plan is already out, how do we address those changing economic type of drivers?
As long as it makes at least as much progress towards the federal goals as the project you're taking out, because it's a zero-sum game, then you're good.
Okay, so there is flexibility based on any changing economic conditions in the community.
Yeah, all you have to show in order to be consistent is you're making at least the same amount of progress towards
Following the
those.
same rules.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, here's the rub. As we talk about how long it takes to do the environmental clearance, or the right-of-way clearance, or if you have to buy right-of-way for this road,
Not on that.
you'll be in line for tip cycle. You think 2 years is short. Wait till you do the federal procurement for a new road to a new factory
Well-
or headquarters. By the time you do all that clearance, you're going to be in line for the construction money 4 or 5 years away.
And that's talking about the I-25 project. 2 years to do the PEL,
Yeah.
2 more years to do an EA, and then 2 or 3 years construction. So if everything goes perfectly best case, you're 6 years from completion. So-
Now I hear that, I'm going to,
Yeah, I know. So I think, the advice we'd give to the business community is certainly use local money. Because you can move local money a lot faster. And if, you can do that, you just avoid the whole federal delay. They have to step through all process. And, most of you have heard the Highway 24 environmental assessment took 7-8 years. That's just the environmental clearance document. So again, depending how, I don't know if corporate America wants to wait 7-8 years to have it cleared, and then they can talk about getting the road for their headquarters.
usually as a community, we want them in here
We want
faster.
we want sign here, we want you to come tomorrow. We'll widen the road while the moving trucks are coming.
Okay, Kevin, you got to, I'm assuming we have all the questions for this first part?
I was just going to ask Kevin, what else would you have us consider at this point in our discussion before you move us forward?
Just regarding the first policy, I think we basically covered it. Yeah, we read it pretty comprehensively. Brought it, to 2 committees, 2 different months. So I was gonna say maybe let this ruminate for another month if you guys want to think about it, and then we can bring it back next month for a further discussion, or we can make a recommendation this month if you're ready to do that. But we do have it just as a discussion item today. But let's get to the second item next, and then we can make a decision on that if we want to change it. So the second discussion item we have here, again, is from last month, and it's regarding creating a separate pot of money for small projects. And last month we talked about, I mentioned we would, the kind of the range that we propose would be $0 to $300,000 of funds, and we got a lot of feedback from both the CAC and the TAC that maybe that might be a little bit too low, and maybe we might want to go to more of a percentage based instead of just the hard numbers. So when I brought this to the TAC again this month, they mentioned that we could potentially raise a small project to $500,000. Some people wanted a little bit higher, but once you get much higher than that, then it wouldn't really be much of a small project, and a lot of the small project sponsors would have a very tough time getting that local match. So that was kind of our concern with making the threshold too high. And so I think right now what we want to do, it sounds like this is something that we want to do, but I think what we need to establish is basically the range, a good range that we would want to have. So again, the TAC recommended making it a little bit higher. I think from what I heard, it was about $500,000 for a small project. And they also mentioned going to the percentage-based as well. If we do $0 to $300,000, that would be about 3% of the STP Metro budget. So if we want to end up raising that, maybe we would go up to 4 or 5%. So again, kind of see what everyone has to say about that. But again, this is kind of more or less the same item as last time. And actually, they did have one other comment at the TAC meeting. They did mention as part of this pot of money, or even creating an additional separate pot of money for planning studies. They mentioned that this could be considered a small project if a project sponsor wants to do a planning study as well. So again, see what you all think about that. So.
Scott? And then I'll go Scott, Tamara, and then I'll go Vince. Go ahead.
I do want to lobby for keeping the bottom end at 0.
Mm-hmm.
Represent Fremont.
Yeah.
We've had projects over $5,000 that really made a big difference in our community.
Mm-hmm.
We've had $10,000 projects that we've had $5,000 from a secondary source, and we've been able to come up with it. Those size projects for us make major safety improvements. They really do change quality of life. $50,000 goal, we won't find a $50,000 project in the next 10 years that we fund ourselves. We're not going to have to do it. So even if we move that top end up to $400,000, $500,000, I definitely am in favor of keeping the bottom down to 0. It's designed for small projects. We have a lot of communities that are our size, especially out east, up in the hill, that really use that type of.
Yeah, that's a good point. And last month at the CAC meeting, I got a question asking basically how many small projects do we have in the TIP that are under 300,000? And I took a quick glimpse at our fiscally constrained project list, and I saw that there was over 20 projects in there that were under 300,000. So I think this would be pretty beneficial to quite a few places.
Okay, Tara?
So first, thanks for providing the FHWA's performance measurement regulations, just for our information. I think that helped a lot today versus last month. And then I did think a lot about this past month about some of the comments I made about some of the, strict requirements for federal funding and how expensive that would be. And then I think Craig stood up and said, well, this would, with smaller cities, that it would be very difficult for them to match or provide their portion. So I totally understand that too. So I did think about it. I did want to ask you, are there going to be any contractor procurement requirements? Meaning, do these projects have to go through an RFP process, or could they be on calls or sole source projects? Because that really is going to kind of limit your options as far as a contractor.
Yeah, remember we talked about is reimbursement? So
Right.
local governments sponsor the projects, they'll use their procurement process because they know theirs. They'll put it out to bid, and then it's the added responsibility of applying to CDOT for the federal money to get it reimbursed. So they do that, and they have to follow their procurement rules and regs.
Right. So what I'm hearing is that this smaller budget is really kind of catering to the smaller communities who can't front the money, and they tend to have a lower threshold of project budget before they have to go through a formal RFP process. So now we're here trying to give them money to do some projects, but then it's almost too much of a budget for them to be able to do it, to get like a sole sourcing or so forth. Exactly. That's what so you're kind of making them waste their money trying to get the projects, and we're trying to give this money to the smaller communities. I'm just wanting to make sure that let's make this work so that it makes sense.
Funny you mention that.
Okay.
At the statewide MPO meeting we've been talking about for a couple of months, with these small projects, instead of using federal money Metro, is we would give that Metro dollars to CDOT to use on a project, and they would in turn give us state money that does not have all those federal requirements, exactly for that reason.
Okay.
So there's a madness to our method, and it's trying to. So
Okay.
yes, you're right. You're tracking exactly on point. So
Their strategy to address those. Okay, Vince, you had a question?
The amount that you're talking about, it would be a pot of money. It could be one project. It could be 20 projects. But what you're doing is you're setting a threshold there of $500,000 as a pot, not as you could have several of these. Do I understand that correctly?
Yeah,
If it were $500,000.
if it were $500,000, it would depend on how much we wanted to take out of STP Metro, but I think my understanding was we would have it be $500,000 two times. So you would have a full $1 million set aside for this, and then the maximum of each project would be $500,000.
But if you had the 20s and 300 and 400.
Yeah, if you had those smaller projects in there, it would add up to a way
so
more.
So you're talking about $1 million in a pot of money that could be a number of projects.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
Had to be cost shared.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Go ahead, Jim.
Just to kind of follow on Jim Moore, follow on, you said there were about 20 projects under 300,000.
Mm-hmm.
When you were doing that scan across, did you get any kind of an impression of how many are in the band from 300 to 500?
I didn't actually look at that. I was just quickly scanning through just to kind of get an idea. I can take a look at that, though, for next month.
Because I think to me it would be interesting before we raise that. I tend to believe we ought to start with a low threshold unless it proves to be unmanageable or it's not addressing fully what the issue is in our area. So my inclination would be to set it initially at 300, 0 to 300, and then see what the experience tells us, and maybe next year we open it up to 400 or 500 if we need to have that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I guess my question was, Are you going to a percentage, or are you going to a cap? And is it more arbitrary by year, or is it more, this is a policy and we're always going to do it this way?
Well, both of those are for the committees to decide.
Okay.
It sounds like, from what I'm hearing, we want to go to more of a percentage-based system, because that can kind of adjust for inflation, and some years we receive less money and more money, so it can kind of adjust for that. And then your other question is regarding if this is going to be a long-term policy. I think we can, yeah, I mean, it just depends what you all want to do. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely worth trying at least one go-around, but if we wanted to make it a long-term policy, that's definitely an option as well.
Okay.
No, I'm confused again. It sounds to me like the percentage is the number we want on how big the pot's going to be.
Right.
Right.
But then we are talking about a different number for the size of project that would be
Right.
subject to it. So that's a hard number. Okay?
Right.
I got that? Thank you. I'm ready for the test.
Okay, anything else, Kevin?
I think that's it. I guess one other thing that the logic we had with the kind of the range of 0 to 300,000 for the small projects was because this was more or less a range that CDOT had for their safe routes to school. They had 50,000 to 350,000 as their range. So we kind of base it off of that. That's kind of how we ballparked it. But again, we don't have to follow their range, and kind of come up with our own percentage if we want to do that too.
Kevin, I have one final question. Are all these projects that are in the pile prioritized, scored? So the small project is scored, the big projects are scored, so there's some comparative ranking to the impact on that particular community, or the...
Are you asking if the small projects are scored differently than the big projects?
Yes.
So this small pot of money would, we would be rating these projects separately in their own category, if that makes sense. That's right? Yeah.
Okay, which means they would not be able to compete for the big pot? What I'm doing is, sometimes when you arbitrarily go, okay, we're going to have a pot of money for small projects. The only reason I'm bringing this up, because I've already made this mistake in another, when I worked for a nonprofit, did some work for a nonprofit, is that you have an arbitrary number that you decide is a percentage for this year. And all of a sudden, you have a range of projects that their impact is great, and you have X amount of money, and they don't have the opportunity to compete against the big projects, because what happens is the impact of that small project may be huge on the community. And what I want to do is there any universal grading, scoring, and prioritization that happens.
Yeah.
Because a small fix on something may be a huge impact.
Yeah.
Small, lower cost project.
That's
Jen?
a really good point, yeah.
Jen, where Jen is probably going, an analogy is, if I evaluate the benefit of dollars per capita, that will basically give you a common comparison.
Sometimes. Sometimes it has to do with the traffic volume. Sometimes it has to do with the impact of the safety issue, that kind of stuff. So there are different metrics. But we use population on a lot, and sometimes that wasn't the key point.
Right now, and we haven't decided it for the next TIP process, but right now there's one scoring process and it yields a score across the board.
Right.
And so you would be able to, a project is under 300,000 or over 300,000, they're scored on the same criteria, so you would be able to see that as it sits right now. What we found is we call it the tyranny of large projects. The bigger the project, the bigger the score. But they are scored on the same criteria. We also have in the 13 criteria that we score is a benefit cost, is a cost effectiveness score. Also, that is one of the criteria, so we see it that way too. This project is the tyranny of large projects. It's a huge project, gets a huge score, but you know what? Actually, on a dollar for dollar basis, it's in the middle of the road.
Yeah, bang for the buck.
Yeah, and so we get that one also. So.
Okay.
I have one more question.
Go ahead.
Kevin, you threw in there, I think, a little bit that the TAC also wanted to include a PEL as being
Yeah.
one. So I want to talk about that a little bit because not always, but many cases, PL is done prior to doing a project, design and construction. But the wording on here says it's a complete project. So are we getting into now, starting to get into a gray area of, okay, if we allow PELs, then why don't we allow design where it's shovel-ready? And so that's a complete, complete task. So I'm not liking that, actually. And if we're really trying to stick with the goal of what we're trying to do here on item 2, I think including PL is not something we as
So it's actually a portion of a project as opposed to the full project.
And there's an argument you can say, well, you can just do a PL and not do anything with it, but then what's the point of doing that PL? Because someday you may be doing something. I mean, it could be just a study and trying to understand what's going on, but the reason you're doing it is you're wondering, do we need to do anything in the future? So I have an issue with that because now we're violating this terminology and wording. So I didn't know if anyone else caught that, but I just wanted to make sure we all understood that portion of it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Thank you
Sorry.
for bringing that. No, that's why I brought it for discussion, so.
Well, I hope you or Bethany are keeping really good notes on what was said.
Absolutely.
So we are not redundant next time, and we
Yeah,
pick
I
our
think
strong suits.
it sounds like we're almost ready to make a recommendation on these items, and I think I'll bring them back next month. But I think the one thing we kind of need to establish for the second one here is, do we want to go to a percentage-based system here? And if so, how much of a percentage do we want to do?
What's
3% is about 300,000.
3% is actually about 600,000 because we're going to do 300,000 two different times. Because 300,000 would be the threshold for a small project. We're trying to get 2 small projects done with every call for projects, which is every 2 years. So, yeah.
Thoughts?
Take leanings.
We may be noodling on that one. So,
Okay, yeah.
I guess my feeling is to go percentage mostly because of the way the dollar fluctuates in the
I'll
cost
bring
of
it.
projects.
Okay. I'll bring it back next month, and I'll just say 3%. We'll put the threshold at 300,000, and if we want to change it, we can go ahead and do that as well. So, again, we have another month to think about it if we want to.
Or we can always amend the recommendation as well, too.
Yeah.
So.
So.
Okay.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank you. Okay, Craig.
This time it's fine, and I figured out why I came up as item number 8, because I was doing the board memo, and it is item number 8 for the board.
Well,
So-
and it's funny, is sometimes I see that ours are directed to the TAC, sometimes I see they're directed to the board, and I'm going, okay.
We keep it all straight.
Go ahead.
So, and this is the fun part to me, this is planning for the plan. So, we're looking at what we're going to talk about is the sort of the schedule and methodology for the 2050 plan. We're aiming at a November 13th, 2019 adoption. So we'll finish off 2016 here. As you see, the public participation plan is out. We are in the very early stages of small area forecast, the data cleaning, data acquisition stage of small area forecast. 2017 will focus on goals and performance measures. 2018 will be about the projects. 2019 about the plan and getting the list of projects. So that's a real high level. So right now, 2016 planning to plan. What we're proposing is following FHWA's plan works. They have a set of steps that they say is the proper way to go about doing a regional transportation plan. Sorry you can't read this. I thought I'd be smart and put these are all hot links, so you can go in and click on it, and it'll take you to the website. But the background color on my computer upstairs and the background color on the projector are not the same. So you can't, they're actually illegible, and I'm sorry about that. I was trying to be tricky, so you'll be getting a version of this where you can select these links, and it will tell you what that step involves.
An electronic version.
An electronic version, yeah, so that it's easier to follow. The public participation plan, that is one of our key documents, and it's already out right now for 45-day public comment. We're looking at a November, December approval of that document, depending on the extent and severity of comments we get. Small area forecast. We are looking at changing. In the past, we've used a program from the Federal Highway Administration called TELM, Transportation Economic Land Use Model, that helps. It's not actually not a forecasting model. What it does is it takes a forecast and subdivides it out around the region. And it's a gravity-based model. Its technology is about 30 years old. It does an adequate job, but it's got some issues, and the issues are becoming more and more bothersome. So what we're looking at is a program called Urban Sim, which is the state-of-the-art model. And we are looking at a version of Urban Sim that isn't actually out yet, where Paul Waddell, the developer of Urban Sim, is looking to use us as sort of a test case use on a region. So on the bleeding edge of this, it is the microsimulation rigorous model. We're hoping it works as easily as Paul says it's going to. He's worked it out, run through stuff. He thinks it's going to be awesome. Of course, it's his model. But this is actually, it's a freeware, shareware. You can all go download Urban Sim right now if you want. The data to make it run, though, that's going to cost you. That's where the money is. 2017, that's we call that the heavy lift year. We are going to confirm the goals and performance measures. They are going to help us identify the regional needs, which we will also then identify. We'll start public outreach on those goals and objectives hopefully as soon as January, possibly into February. Depends on how the public participation process goes and some of the other things. March or April, we're looking at getting those goals and objectives approved along with the performance measures. Again, I said it earlier, the feds have a goal. The state has to do at least that goal, then the state has to come up with a goal, and we have to do at least that. That process may take a little longer than March or April, or what may necessitate, if we don't achieve those levels, we may have to go back and revisit some of our performance measures. We are going to, as we've done in the past, we are going to continue to develop different scenarios, because the only thing we know for sure is our forecast of where people live and work is wrong. We don't know how wrong. We're taking an extra step this time. In fact, you all are the cause of a lot of that, is instead of just looking at distributing different land uses, what about different technologies? What if autonomous cars come in big and heavy? What if the auxiliary homes are allowed, where you're allowed to build a second home on your property for your in-laws or something like that? Or what if we get smart infrastructure that communicates with cars, so we actually can get rid of traffic signals where the cars communicate themselves with the infrastructure, and we don't need traffic signals? So we're going. There's actually a whole set of these assumptions. Federal Highway has a National Cooperative Highway Research Program 750. It's a set of 6-volume set, and it's also a CD of different assumptions and things you can do to 2050 to help figure out what these scenarios are. So we'll, with your help and some other people's help, assemble these multiple scenarios to see what the possible future is and what kind of needs we have, and then what's the best way to invest. And again, it's to prepare, not predict, because I do have a crystal ball upstairs on my desk, but it doesn't work as well as one would hope. We will then use those goals, performance measures, to identify the needs in the region. That's something else we haven't done, is identify needs before the local entities told us what their projects are. We're going to roll out, here's all of the safety issues, here's the congestion issues, here's pavement maintenance, here's bridge maintenance. So all the needs based on the goals that are identified, we'll roll out where those needs are. Hopefully that will help frame the projects we get back, and it will identify what the actual cost is. We've had a pretty good idea what our regional need is for pavement maintenance, but some of the congestion and safety hasn't been real clear. Look at costs of different projects, and hopefully that gets us through December 17, where we have the full list of needs in the region. This is sort of an odd thing, but one of the big focuses right now at the federal level is making sure that low-income minority areas are not only not impacted more than non-low-income minority areas, but that they achieve at least the same amount of benefit, at least as fast as non-low-income, non-minority areas. And so that's a little more difficult. And so we're going to, when we do the needs, we're going to make sure we have a subset of those needs that will serve the low-income minority areas. Safety analysis plan, we have the state-of-the-art model worldwide right now in safety. CDOT also has it. It was actually developed here in Colorado, so it is a tremendous system, very user-friendly, and among the things it showed us is we have a freakishly high crash rate in the city of Colorado Springs, especially at intersections. We actually have a crash rate at intersections in the city that is the same as a rural crash rate. We're looking into that more. We don't know why, but we're going to track it down. Criteria, as we said before, all the criteria, the 13 criteria we have, they are not weighted the same. They're not equal. We'll go through a process to come up with how more equal some of those criteria are. 2018 will be all about the projects. We'll have identified the needs. We'll have put together a project application and do the call for projects for the entities to submit applications. We're hoping to do the call in March, get the applications back by June. We hope that to make the application as user-friendly as we can, so that it's not as big a effort on the part of the local entities as it is, because a lot of this stuff that they will need to provide us, we actually have to give them. So why should we even ask it? It creates extra steps for both of us. So we're going to try to simplify the project application. July to 2018 to January 2019, we'll do the analysis and scoring of the projects. And the reason that's such a long period is because we'll be scoring all the projects against all these different scenarios. It's a risk assessment just to make sure that some projects will be good in some scenarios and not in others, and we'll try to come up with a way to balance those different scenarios. Yes.
Are you going to have any way of scoring for the probability of the scenarios?
All future scenarios are equally probable. We've actually had some pretty long discussions about this. And 20 years ago, smartphones. If 20 years ago you said, what are the probability that we will keep in our pocket the entire combination of human knowledge and videos of cats? And we do. I mean, you can access any information and a lot of videos of cats now in your pocket. So the probability, what we will do is all the scenarios will be equal, but projects will score differently, both within the scenarios and then within the criteria. What we actually expect to happen is that we will come up with more than one optimal list of projects. And then it'll be a process of whittling down that.
Yeah, I applaud what we've heard so far, and I know you've got a couple more slides to go through.
Yeah,
but it just seems to me that if they score differently by scenario, knowing that some scenarios are more likely or considered by experts or something more likely should end up with a weighting then on the scores, so that some plan objects might play out differently if they, because of the way the scenarios look as well.
Well, and it's not a problem, it's just a fact, that the scenarios are going to have different assumptions for land use distribution. They'll have different assumptions for household composition, different assumptions for vehicle technology. And so how you compare those, so you may give one scenario, this land use is more likely than this land use, but the opposite is true about the vehicle technology. The less likely land use is the more likely vehicle technology. And so unless you go through a process of take one in, take one out, which is extremely time-consuming, there's no real way to come up with a weighting about that. So
let's let Craig finish, and then we can. So.
Okay. Well, at 2019, we'll be putting it all together. We're going to evaluate the different project portfolios against the federal, state, and local performance measures. And this is where I said we are extremely likely to have more than one optimal project portfolio, fiscally constrained portfolio, and then there'll be an art to coming up with the projects that should finally be included in that. But the final actual fiscally constrained portfolio will have to be evaluated against all the performance goals for how our investments will perform and how well we achieve our goals. By July and August of 2019, we'll be having some significant discussions on the art of that final list. Approval in September of 2019. The final plan assembled September of 2019, released for public comment September, October, with a November 13th final plan approval. So that is
The plan.
the meta plan. It's the plan for the plan.
Okay, question, Scott?
One of the people that's been chatting about autonomous driving vehicles with folks at Metro for probably the past 3 years as we manage a transportation fleet. A couple of things come to mind. Uber just debuted its person carrier. So Uber Lyft, they tried to name it and got beat up with that. But it's an autonomous flying drone that lands in your front yard and flies you somewhere. It works. It has a 30-minute airtime today.
Power
And
lines.
that's just with the technology we have now. So if you missed the flying cars that we all read about in the 60s, they're here. And we have 2 major metropolitan areas that are doing autonomous vehicles now. Who would have thought that would have been Pittsburgh? Yeah, the road usage regulations were so lax they couldn't get in trouble for it. So into the college with a lot of funding. So by the time we get to 2019, and we're putting this together, a couple of real macro trends are happening. We're becoming less office-centric. More of our workforce is where they choose to be as opposed to at their home or after work or whatnot. We have quite a bit of that going on, which tends to take traffic off the road. And then we have less individual people driving on the roads. And the next step, and we'll watch it, we're talking right now about vehicles being autonomous. The technological step, if you talk to the folks at State Train, if you talk to folks at the Transportation Department, is the cars have to talk to each other. It's the only way it really works. The cars have to talk to each other, and they have to be able to talk to the transportation control devices. State Tran doesn't want to give that technology up. They don't want to turn it over for the liability. And they're right here in Colorado Springs, so this is happening in our own backyard. Once that hurdle is over, and you're told that your car has to communicate with someone else, or you can't drive your 60 Nova on the road anymore, that will be a quantum shift in how we use transportation.
Yeah.
And theoretically, it's coming. And if you project that out, you can see a decrease in actual road traffic by 25 to 30%. Are we looking at that, at the impact of that on our highway dollars if we take that much transportation off the road?
Totally. That's all part of it. Actually, though, they won't tell you you can't drive your 1960 Camaro. But what your insurance company will say, yeah, you don't have to put this device on your vehicle, but it's going to cost you $10,000 a month if you don't. And that's actually where the leverage is going to come in.
I would agree with you there.
Yeah. And actually, because I sit on a committee at TRB for this, what will happen is the cars, police enforcement will become insurance enforcement. Cars will report you to your insurance company on how you drive. That's the direction they're working.
1984.
It is. That's the direction they're working.
Cars, but I'm not sure how you're going to do this with a motorcycle.
So.
Have to have Brian get more buses. Okay, Kevin?
Thanks for doing this, Craig. I think this is good. You had some slides in here that are different. than the
Yep.
ones that
You got the updated ones.
We got the updated ones?
Yeah. The ones on this.
Packet?
Yeah, the packet is the older ones. These are the new ones.
Did you send those?
Yes, please.
Yeah, and I'll make sure to correct the silly little background link thing.
Yeah, I'd like to read what the links are.
The question I have is, this is all really good stuff, but it makes me very nervous to see that the first time we're going to be able to sort of see the whole package at one time is 2 months before it's approved. And so I would caution you to say that
back it
Can
up.
we have a little more time to have the whole thing look at it? Because it says here that assembled and complete in September and approval in November. That's kind of, it doesn't give anybody a time to really step back, look at the whole picture and say, what happened?
I remember that whole waiting and scoring process was
So
significant.
that's,
Well,
just a.
during this January 2019 to June 2019, this is where you'll actually start, you will be helping us plug projects in to create fiscally constrained portfolios.
Okay.
So, yeah, you won't see the assembled, but during this 6-month period right there is when we'll be putting them together, and there's going to be,
That makes more sense.
yeah. So, yeah, I guess I didn't make that clear. I should.
I think the other thing, you may remember, the board and you all recommended approval last plan, 10 or 12 distinct approvals.
Yeah.
So my guess is you'll have 8 to 10 distinct
Yeah,
approvals.
but then at the end, everybody looked at it and said, what is
We
this
were-
whole
yeah, I
picture?
know.
Wasn't what I approved before, yeah, I know.
That's the double-edged sword. It's like, do you remember when you approved the fiscal
Exactly.
a year ago?
Well, anyway, that's just gave me the heebie-jeebies. So 2019 is a long way out.
Not really. Okay, Jim?
Quickly, can we expect there'll be some workshops for us to deal with the
In between.
details and the detail in
Oh, yeah.
Yep, and we can do workshops, they can be working sessions here, like, like 1 to 3 before a CAC meeting, things like that. Yep, there's going to be, and actually, Jennifer's not here, we're actually trying to lay all those out and come up with both TAC, CAC, and then public workshops. It's, because it's November 2019 seems a long way away until you start actually putting time to each of these tasks, and you're like, ooh, we're already 2 months late. So,
Okay, Vince?
If we have that capability with cars at that time, we're probably going to have some ability to expedite meetings online. And
yeah.
So
We'll have virtual meetings by then.
Boring.
We'll have smarter people here.
I'll just be able to plug
Yep.
my
Yeah.
matrix.
Al?
The list on the front page of the goals that will be developed, it's like everything you could possibly think of. Is that really?
These are the ones that are federally mandated. We actually have a couple more that aren't required in our plan. These are the ones that are specified in law or regulation. So, but some of them, like stormwater, mitigate stormwater impacts. We have, that's actually not, it's not that hard. So, any other questions?
Okay, any other questions?
And as you think of things that you're curious about, please feel free to send them to me, because we can't possibly think of everything. So, because I have actually, I'll show it to you when I'm done here. But I have a book that is just for the methodology of the long-range plan that I'm writing, so that I can keep it all straight. I call it the Book of All Knowledge. So.
Puts it under the crystal ball.
Will it have links to the videos of the cats in it? That's the question.
I hope not. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, any items for the next CAC meeting that you know of? I do have one. One of the things, and I talked to Rob about this, is that, people transition from our group in November, and I believe it's May. And one of the things that I haven't seen is that we publicly thank those people that have served. You're talking about people that have put in 3 to 6 years of time, energy to review these plans. And I think we as a group, 2 things I'd really like to do is next month, don't wear your Grateful Dead T-shirt in, because I'd really like to get a photo of the team that was in 2016. And so we'll send a note out. Bethany, if we can, when we send out our packet, if we could please say something very politically correct about not wearing any T-shirts, but
There'll be a photo opportunity.
a photo op, yes, for the team.
report.
And And I think it's important, and the other thing is taking the opportunity, that last meeting, that person is with us, to make sure we say it properly, thank them for their input and their energy for serving. And I think we're going to go ahead and do something, so. Yes?
Also, could we consider periodically, perhaps every other meeting or every third meeting, doing an update on staff transitions so that we're in the know? If we're not here for the pre or the post conversation in the corner, we may not know that someone's temporarily supporting us versus a permanent addition to staff to support us. Those kind of clarifications make a world of difference in our perspective, and we're ever so grateful for the knowledge. Thank you.
Good point, Ellen. You do know that Rachel's gone?
Yes.
Okay.
I got the email, yes.
Okay.
Interviews are underway for
Yeah,
the next one.
it's closer to 8.
The cycle's about, hey, you know, I know about everything around here.
But I agree. I think that's I don't think that's an issue as well.
And so you heard for Bethany, but we can do the update. I hope there will be a new name tag at this location at your next meeting.
It's the point, and not that it isn't going well so far, but my point is, if we don't, we could stand to know just a little bit more about the transitions from meeting to meeting, just so we understand the process underway. For example, if you've got someone temporarily plugged in, or there's someone missing who's been here for months, and we may know there are transitions, but we may not know who's going where, when.
Who's on first.
And trying to figure out if someone's here with us temporarily or long-term it's a thought we don't need to be thinking about in the middle of another discussion. Thanks.
Okay. Yep. Kip?
I'm going to make my monthly request to get an update on the joint land use study.
Yep. That's fine. And I was going to ask Hal here.
I haven't been able to get
Hal
any-
or Vince.
Well, the last time.
He gave a really good report.
I'm talking about the overall thing.
The whole
not just-
project,
not
and
just-
I asked at the board meeting, one of the things I did ask for was, Brian wasn't at the board meeting, and I said, the group is looking for an update. So that's on there. It should have been part of our minutes,
The Academy has it now.
because we asked for that last time.
That could just be emailed, I don't have to have it in writing.
I don't either.
I'd love to read it. Just
For now, you can go to the website, get some updates, but, he said he'd come back for the next month.
Well, and even if you can let us know what's happening, because he didn't appear at the board meeting or our last one,
Right.
so.
Yeah. For joint land use, he has a
Right.
separate board.
Yep.
Policy board, technical, and work groups, but he wants to touch base with PPACG board, certainly this committee, so, he was planning on a presentation next month. So we can email out things ahead of time.
Okay.
But you can always go to the website, because we're continuously updating that. I just met with them. So, there should be new information on our website about joint land use, from the work group, technical committee.
Okay, is it a link on your website then?
Yeah, it's programmed under PPACG.
Okay.
Go to our website.
Okay, I'm trying to remember where I
Go
saw
across
it.
the top, and zip down, you'll find it.
Okay, Ellen?
Jen, in the past, as we brought new CAC members on, we've shortly after that had occasion to do workshops to sort of rebond the group or update people or bring them onto the same page with people who've been on for
Training.
a while. As the dates for those are evolved, instead of waiting for the next meeting, maybe we could just ask staff to go ahead and send out an email in advance, know their working dates that we could be plugging into our calendars. That's a good idea. We're more likely to be able to get there if we have some advanced planning on my part. Thanks.
Good points. Bethany, I hope you're snagging all this. Thanks. Okay, any other great ideas? I'm always wowed by the depth of the conversation, particularly the work that you all do to bring up the questions and ask things that are tough questions that are important for the people in our community to know about. So I'm constantly jazzed by that, so thank you. Okay, anything else? Anything wild going on in anybody's communities? Okay, the Navy game, okay.
We're really
The
focused.
Air Force game that Navy is
Navy's gonna
playing.
lose.
Oh, no,
Okay.
don't go there.
Oh, yeah.
Don't go
Okay,
there.
I've got
I'm
a joke
going
for
there.
all the services, okay? You have Army, Navy, Marine, Air Force in one room together, all talking. Joe Navy comes up to you, Army, and says, "You know what Army stands for?" "What?" Army's a four-letter word. Everybody's laughing. The Navy says, yeah, me too, I'm Navy, I'm a four-letter word. Air Force is laughing. You're two four-letter words. No, well, it's 3 and 5. Yeah, it's higher math. 8. Okay. And then the Marines laughing. They just don't know how to spell.
Ooh. Wow, I hope there's not a Marine in the room. There you go.
I grew up right next to a Marine Corps base, but the Navy and the Marines form the Naval Service. The Marines are not part of the Navy.
It's true.
And if you tell a Marine that, you're going to hear something.
Well, I just had 2 Navy commanders, former commanders, actually one's still in, join my Civil Air Patrol unit.
Ah.
So they said, we'd like our Navy wings on the cap uniform, and I'm going, I don't think so. They were a little miffed by that. so-
Airedale, okay, there.
Two of my
Get it.
Boy Scout, 2 of my Eagle Scouts are now Marines, and they said they were with me on Facebook. I didn't let any of them do it until they turned 18 or they made Eagle. And 2 of them sent me a note the other day, and they showed all of these Navy ships, boats, whatever you want to call them, and they're going across the water, and they said, the Navy is nothing more than Uber drivers for us Marines.
Okay, we're adjourned. We'll see you next month.
I'm glad the Marines are on our side. They're the only troops you'll drop 1,000 miles away from the nearest port with 1 month's supplies, and they'll fight.
Yes,